The morning felt different. There was something in the air that I couldn't quite place. I woke up to the sound of birds chirping outside the window, the early light streaming through the blinds, just like every other day. But this time, it was different. The light felt colder. The silence heavier. I couldn't put my finger on it, but my senses were heightened, like my body was already on alert. Something wasn't right. I rolled over in bed, glancing at Rachel. She was still asleep, her back turned to me. I couldn't help but watch her for a moment, marveling at how peaceful she looked. Rachel and I had been married for nearly 8 years. We had our ups and downs, of course, like any couple, but I thought we were happy. She had always been my rock. The person I could rely on when the world felt too overwhelming. But in that moment, something inside me told me that things weren't as they seemed. I quietly got out of bed, trying not to disturb her, and made my way to the kitchen. The smell of freshly brewed coffee was already in the air. Rachel must have gotten up earlier than me to prepare it, a small but sweet gesture that had become a morning ritual between us. But this morning, it felt off. The kitchen, like the rest of the house, felt quieter than usual. The sound of the coffee machine seemed louder than normal, as if it was echoing in the empty space around me. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat down at the kitchen table, staring out the window. The world outside looked so normal, so peaceful. But inside, I felt like everything was beginning to unravel. Rachel finally emerged from the bedroom, rubbing her eyes as she walked into the kitchen. She smiled at me, but it didn't reach her eyes. Her smile was thin, almost forced. I noticed it immediately. There was a distance between us that hadn't been there before. "Morning," I said, trying to sound casual, even though my heart was pounding in my chest. "Morning," she replied softly, her voice barely above a whisper. She moved to the counter to pour herself a cup of coffee, but her movements seemed mechanical, like she was going through the motions without really being present. I tried to ignore the uneasy feeling that had settled in my stomach. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I was just overthinking things, as I often did. But I couldn't shake the sense that something was wrong. "So, what's on the agenda today?" I asked, trying to make small talk to break the silence. Rachel glanced at me briefly, her eyes darting away almost immediately. "I've got a few errands to run. You know, the usual stuff. Nothing exciting." Her response was so flat, so disinterested. I didn't know what it was, but it made me uneasy. This wasn't like her. Rachel had always been lively, engaging. But today, she seemed withdrawn. Detached. Like she wasn't really here with me. I couldn't focus on anything after that. As we finished breakfast in silence, I couldn't stop staring at her, wondering what had changed. What had happened to the woman I had known so well? But she wouldn't meet my gaze. She was busying herself with cleaning up the dishes, her back turned to me. Eventually, she kissed me goodbye, a quick, almost absent peck on the cheek, before heading out for her errands. I watched her leave, the door closing behind her with a soft click. I sat there for a few moments, my mind racing. Something was wrong. I could feel it deep in my gut. At work, my mind wasn't in it. I couldn't focus on the endless pile of emails in front of me or the meetings I had scheduled. My thoughts kept drifting back to Rachel. What had happened this morning? Why did everything feel so off? Why hadn't she looked at me the same way she always did? I tried to shake it off. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I was just stressed out. But then, something happened. It was a message from Kyle. Kyle, my secretary, had been with me for years. We were close. He was someone I trusted implicitly, someone I could rely on. But when I saw his name pop up on my phone, something about it made my heart race. "We need to talk. I have something important to tell you. It's about Rachel." I stared at the message, my hands suddenly clammy. What did Kyle want to tell me about Rachel? I couldn't even begin to guess. But whatever it was, it didn't feel good. My mind instantly started racing with all the possible scenarios. Was something going on between them? No, that was ridiculous. Kyle was a professional. But my gut told me there was something I wasn't seeing. I called him immediately, my pulse quickening as the phone rang. "Kyle?" I said when he answered. My voice was shaking more than I intended. "Jake, we need to meet in person," he replied, his voice strained. It's about Rachel." My stomach dropped. "What about Rachel?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. But I could feel the panic rising inside me. "I can't explain over the phone," Kyle said. "You need to hear this from me in person. It's important. Please. Can you meet me?" I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my coat, told my assistant I had to leave early, and headed straight for the cafe Kyle had suggested. When I arrived, Kyle was already sitting at a table, his head buried in his hands. He looked awful pale, exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. He barely looked up when I approached, and when he did, his eyes were filled with guilt, pain, and fear. "Kyle, what's going on?" I asked, my voice firm, though I could feel the fear bubbling up inside me. "I don't know how to say this, Jake," Kyle said, his voice barely a whisper. "But Rachel and we've been seeing each other. We've been having an affair." The words hit me like a freight train. My brain couldn't process them at first. Kyle? Rachel? My secretary and my wife? It didn't make sense. It couldn't be true. But the look on his face, the way he was trembling, told me everything I needed to know. "I'm sorry," Kyle continued, his voice breaking. "I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't plan for it to happen. It did. And I've been trying to figure out how to tell you. I didn't want you to find out like this, but I couldn't hide it anymore." I felt my world start to crumble around me. Everything I thought I knew about my life, about Rachel, was falling apart. 6 months. 6 months of betrayal. 6 months of lies, of secrets. I felt like I couldn't breathe. "How long?" I managed to ask, barely able to get the words out. 6 months, Kyle whispered. "It started after you and Rachel had that fight a while ago. She came to me for support. And then, one thing led to another. I never meant for it to go this far, Jake. I swear I didn't." I stood there in shock. 6 months. That was half a year of my life, of my marriage, that I would never get back. I couldn't comprehend it. "I need to go," I said, my voice cold, distant. I didn't know how I was even standing, how I could process what he had just told me. I turned and walked out of the cafe without another word, my mind spinning. The weight of his confession pressed down on me, suffocating me. When I got home later that evening, I found myself dreading the confrontation I knew was coming. Rachel wasn't home yet, but I could already feel the tension building. I didn't know how I was going to face her. How could I? How could I even look at her after everything I had just learned? But I had to. I had to know the truth. I could feel the weight of the silence pressing down on me as I walked through the front door. My mind was a whirlwind, spinning in circles, but there was one thought that cut through all the noise: I needed answers. I needed to confront Rachel, to hear the truth straight from her mouth. I took a deep breath and set my keys down on the kitchen counter. My hands were shaking, my stomach twisted in knots, but I forced myself to steady my breathing. The house felt cold, eerily quiet. The same house that had been a home for so many years, the place where we had shared our lives, our dreams. Now, it felt like a stranger's house. The door to the living room creaked open, and I saw Rachel standing there, her back to me. She didn't even turn around when I entered, as though she already knew I was here, as though she had been waiting for this moment for a long time. I stood frozen for a moment, just watching her. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew. She was staring out the window, her shoulders slightly hunched, her hands clasped together in front of her as if bracing herself. Her posture, her whole demeanor, seemed so different. The warmth I had once felt whenever I saw her was gone, replaced by something I couldn't place. Finally, I spoke. My voice was colder than I intended, but I couldn't help it. "Rachel," I said, my voice cutting through the silence. we need to talk. She didn't respond right away, but I could hear her breath hitch, just barely. A part of me wanted to turn away, to leave and pretend like I never heard what Kyle said. But that part of me wasn't in control anymore. The man who had trusted her, who had loved her, was gone. Now, all that was left was a man who needed the truth, no matter how painful it was. Rachel slowly turned to face me, and I saw it. The guilt. The shame. It was written all over her face. I didn't even need her to speak, I already knew. But I needed to hear it. I needed to hear her say it out loud. I needed her to admit it. I know, I said, my voice low. I know about you and Kyle. She flinched, her face going pale. For a moment, she seemed to lose her balance, but then she straightened herself, lifting her chin and trying to maintain some semblance of composure. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words didn't come. Instead, she just stood there, staring at me, her lips trembling. Tell me it's not true, I said, my heart pounding in my chest. Tell me you didn't betray me. Tell me you didn't sleep with him. Rachel's eyes flickered, and for the briefest moment, I saw something in them, something that made me doubt myself. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I had misunderstood. Maybe there was an explanation for all of this. But then, the look of guilt returned, and it shattered any hope I had left. She took a step forward, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake, I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to happen. It just did. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rage, to tear everything apart. But instead, I just stood there, frozen. Her words echoed in my mind, but they didn't make sense. She never meant for it to happen? Was that supposed to make it better? Was that supposed to excuse what she had done? Tell me everything, I demanded, my voice more forceful now. How long, Rachel? How long has it been going on? She hesitated, her eyes flickering to the floor, but then she looked up at me again. 6 months, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. It started 6 months ago. After the fight, you know, the one we had when I felt like you weren't listening to me. I was lonely, Jake. And Kyle, he was there. He listened to me. He made me feel seen again. I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. 6 months. Half a year. Half a year of lies, of betrayal, of her giving herself to someone else. I couldn't breathe. The room felt like it was closing in on me, suffocating me. My thoughts were spinning, but one thing was clear, everything I thought I knew about my wife was a lie. You could have talked to me, Rachel, I said, my voice breaking. We could have worked through it together. But instead, you turned to him. You chose him. Rachel's face crumpled in sorrow, but I couldn't feel sorry for her. Not now. I didn't mean for it to go that far, she said, her voice pleading. It was a mistake. It was a terrible mistake, Jake. I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted to lose you. But it was too late for apologies. It was too late for excuses. Her words meant nothing now. The damage had been done. I took a step back, my eyes never leaving hers. You don't get it, do you? I said, the bitterness in my voice growing with each word. It's not just about the sex. It's about the lies. The deceit. The fact that you didn't even have the decency to tell me. You let me live this entire lie while you were out there with him, pretending like everything was fine. Rachel opened her mouth to say something, but I held up my hand, silencing her. No. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear your excuses. I need space, Rachel. I can't look at you right now. Her eyes filled with tears, and I felt a pang of guilt deep in my chest, but I ignored it. I couldn't allow myself to feel sympathy for her. Not now. Not when everything we had was destroyed by her actions. I'm leaving, I said, my voice hard. I need to clear my head. I don't know when I'll be back. Rachel didn't say anything. She just stood there, her face a mask of regret, her tears falling freely now. I could see her pain, but it didn't matter. She had made her choice, and now it was my turn to make mine. I walked out of the house, slamming the door behind me. The cool night air hit me like a slap in the face, but it did nothing to numb the pain in my chest. I got in my car, started the engine, and drove aimlessly. I didn't know where I was going, but I couldn't stay there. I couldn't be in that house, that place where everything we built was shattered. The city lights blurred past me, but I didn't care about any of it. I didn't care about the world outside. All I could think about was Rachel, and what she had done. How could I have been so blind? How could I have trusted her so completely? I parked the car near a park, the headlights cutting through the darkness as I sat there, lost in my thoughts. The pain was overwhelming, suffocating. I didn't know what to do. What should I do now? Was there even a chance of fixing this? But deep down, I knew the answer. There was no fixing this. Not anymore. I had driven aimlessly for what felt like hours. The city lights outside blurred together, my thoughts more disjointed than ever before. Every street I passed, every intersection I crossed, it all felt meaningless. It felt like nothing mattered anymore. I pulled up to a quiet, almost empty lot by the water, the sound of the waves lapping at the shore soothing, but it didn't do anything to calm the storm raging inside me. I stepped out of the car, feeling the cold night air bite at my skin. It was the kind of chill that made everything feel sharper, clearer, almost painfully real. I stared out at the water, my mind replaying Rachel's words over and over again. 6 months. 6 months of betrayal. 6 months of lies. How had I not seen it? How had I not noticed the cracks, the moments where she pulled away? How had I been so blind? But then, the more I thought about it, the more I realized maybe I hadn't been blind at all. Maybe I had known, deep down. Maybe I had chosen not to see it because I wanted to believe in something that wasn't real anymore. The pain I felt was a constant ache in my chest, but there was another feeling creeping up on me now: anger. Anger at myself for being such a fool. Anger at Rachel for betraying me. And anger at Kyle. How could he do this? How could he, a man who had been working with me for years, do this to me? I had trusted him like a brother. I had shared everything with him. And this was how he repaid me? The thought of Kyle, the thought of him in my house, in my life, taking what was mine, everything in me boiled with rage. I clenched my fists, trying to focus on the cold air, on the steady rhythm of the waves. But nothing seemed to help. I turned around and leaned against the car, looking up at the dark sky above me. It felt endless, like the horizon was stretching on forever. It felt like that was how long I'd be stuck in this nightmare. And there was no going back. I pulled out my phone and stared at it for a moment. I hadn't called anyone, hadn't reached out to any friends or family. I didn't know what to say. What could I possibly say? What could they offer me that would fix this? I could hear my brother's voice in my head, telling me to take time for myself, to figure it out. But how could I? How could I even begin to process this? How was I supposed to move forward from something like this? I dialed his number anyway. "Hey, Jake," my brother's voice came through, thick with sleep, but still steady. "What's up?" "I don't know what to do, Dan," I said, my voice cracking for the first time. "I feel lost. I don't know what's real anymore. She cheated on me, man. With Kyle. 6 months. There was a pause on the other end, and then a long sigh. "Jesus, Jake. I'm so sorry, man. That's messed up." "I don't even know what to say," I continued, my throat tight. She's not the person I thought she was. None of it is real. Look, I know it's tough. I know you're angry, but you need to get out of that headspace. You can't just sit there, staring at the water all night. You've gotta face this. You've gotta confront it. And you have to make a decision. Do you want to try and fix this, or do you walk away? I closed my eyes, leaning back against the car. My mind was still racing. "I don't know if I can fix it, Dan. I don't know if I can ever look at her the same way again. I get it. But don't make any decisions right now. Take time. You don't have to do anything tonight. I hung up the phone and tossed it back into the car, my hand trembling slightly. The night was getting colder, but I didn't feel it. Nothing mattered. Nothing made sense. I thought back to the last time I had truly felt connected with Rachel, when we had laughed together, when we had shared our hopes, our fears. I could still hear the sound of her laughter in my mind, still remember the way her eyes would light up when she was happy. It felt like a lifetime ago. How had we gone from that to this? How had everything become so broken? I needed answers. I needed to know why she did it. What had driven her to betray me? Was it just Kyle? Was it something deeper? Something that had been missing between us? And that's when it hit me. It wasn't just about Kyle. It wasn't just about the affair. It was about everything we had stopped talking about, everything we had ignored. Our communication had dwindled, our connection had faded. But I had been too caught up in my own work, too blind to see it. I had been so focused on providing, on building our life, that I neglected to see the cracks in our relationship. I had forgotten to see Rachel not as my wife, but as a woman with her own desires, her own needs. I had taken her for granted. And now, it was too late. I slammed my fist against the hood of the car, the sound sharp and painful. I didn't care. The guilt, the anger, the confusion, they all collided within me, and for the first time, I felt like I was drowning. Like I couldn't breathe, couldn't think straight. I couldn't go back to her. I couldn't just pretend that everything would be okay. But I couldn't walk away, either. Not yet. I pulled my jacket tighter around me, glancing at the water again. I didn't know what my next move would be. I didn't know how to fix this. But I knew one thing for sure, I couldn't keep running from it. The truth was out there now, and it was time to face it. The night before had been long, painfully so. I tossed and turned in bed, the guilt and confusion clawing at my chest. I should have been angry, furious even, but I couldn't summon the strength to feel anything but a numb, hollow ache. Everything I knew about my life, about my wife, about the man who had been my closest confidant, had been turned upside down. And the worst part? I had no idea how to fix any of it. The next day dragged on endlessly. Every meeting, every phone call, every trivial email, nothing felt real. The papers on my desk, the endless reports, the deadlines that were quickly approaching, all of it felt irrelevant. I had a company to run, yes, but what did that matter now? My personal life had come crashing down around me, and nothing seemed to hold any weight. I hadn't spoken to Rachel all day. I couldn't. How could I? After what she had done, what could I even say to her? What could I do but feel betrayed? I had trusted her with everything, my heart, my future, my love, and she had thrown it all away. I couldn't avoid her forever, though. At some point, I was going to have to face the truth. I was going to have to confront her. I had never been one to run from problems, but this was different. This wasn't a business negotiation or a tough client, it was the woman I had loved for over a decade, the woman I had vowed to stand by no matter what. And she had broken that vow in the worst way possible. As the day wore on, I finally decided it was time. I left the office early, my mind racing the entire drive home. It was already late in the evening, and the sun had just dipped below the horizon, casting the sky in an orange-red hue. The roads were quieter than usual, and I found myself lost in thought, replaying the conversation I'd had with Rachel the night before. When I pulled into the driveway, Rachel's car was parked out front, the headlights casting an eerie glow across the front lawn. I stared at it for a moment, knowing that the moment I walked through the door, everything would change. There was no going back. No pretending. I grabbed my jacket, my heart pounding in my chest, and made my way to the front door. I hesitated for a moment, taking a deep breath before I pushed it open. Inside, Rachel was sitting on the couch, her face pale and tired. She looked up when I entered, but she didn't stand. She didn't move. There was a heaviness in the air between us, a palpable tension that I couldn't ignore. Jake, she said softly, her voice shaky. I know you're upset, but... Upset? I interrupted, my voice louder than I intended. Upset doesn't even begin to cover it. You lied to me. You've been lying to me for months. And you think a simple apology is going to fix it? She flinched at my words, but I didn't care. The anger that had been simmering inside me for so long now boiled over, and I couldn't hold it back. I don't even know who you are anymore, Rachel, I continued, pacing across the room. You had an affair with Kyle. You let him into our home, into our life. Do you understand how that feels? To know that the person you trusted most in the world has been betraying you behind your back? I thought we had something real. I thought we had an understanding, but now I see, I was just a fool. Rachel's eyes filled with tears, and she stood up slowly, her hands trembling as she wiped her eyes. Jake, please. It wasn't like that. I stopped pacing and turned to face her. How was it then? How do you explain this? How do you explain the last 6 months, the lies, the secret meetings? She shook her head, struggling to find the right words. It wasn't about love. It wasn't about anything like that. It was just a mistake. I was feeling neglected. I didn't feel like you were paying attention to me anymore. I didn't know how to talk to you about it. I didn't know how to say what I needed. A sharp pain shot through me at her words. I had been so consumed with work, with everything else in my life, that I hadn't noticed the cracks forming in our relationship. I had been so focused on providing, on building our future, that I had failed to notice that she was slipping away. And now, it was too late. You didn't know how to talk to me? I repeated, my voice cracking. Rachel, I've been here for you. I've always been here. I've given you everything. And you chose to go behind my back with him. With Kyle. You took the easy way out. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered, stepping toward me. I swear. But I felt so alone, Jake. I felt like you didn't care. You were always so busy. You never had time for me anymore. I took a deep breath, fighting to keep my composure. I never meant to make you feel that way, but that's no excuse. You could have talked to me. You could have come to me. But instead, you decided to destroy everything. Rachel reached out for my hand, but I pulled away, the gesture feeling more painful than I ever thought possible. I don't know if I can ever forgive you for this, I said, the words heavy on my tongue. I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again. She collapsed back onto the couch, her face buried in her hands as she sobbed. And in that moment, I felt a deep ache in my chest, a pain that came not from anger, but from the loss of something I once believed in. I turned and walked out of the room, not sure where I was going, just needing to escape. I couldn't stay there. Not when everything felt like it was falling apart. I had driven for hours, just trying to clear my head, trying to outrun the whirlwind of emotions that was threatening to overwhelm me. But no matter how far I went, no matter how fast I drove, the reality of what was happening kept following me, like a shadow I couldn't escape. By the time I reached the hotel, the night was deep, the streets quiet and empty. I checked into a room, my movements automatic, my mind numb. I didn't even know why I was doing it. I didn't know what I was hoping to find. The bed was cold when I lay down. The sheets felt strange, unfamiliar, like they weren't meant for me. I closed my eyes, but sleep didn't come. How could it? The image of Rachel, the sound of her voice, the hollow look in her eyes, it all kept playing on a loop in my mind. I finally picked up my phone, scrolling through the messages from her. Apologies, promises to change, pleas for forgiveness. I could feel the weight of each word pressing against me, suffocating me. I wanted to scream, to throw the phone across the room, but instead, I just turned it off and set it down. The next morning, I found myself back in the car, driving home with a sense of dread in my gut. I knew what I had to do. I had to face Rachel, and I had to make a decision. I couldn't keep running from this. It wasn't fair to either of us. When I arrived, Rachel was sitting at the kitchen table, waiting for me. Her eyes were red, her face a mask of regret, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. I sat down across from her, my hands trembling slightly as I clasped them together on the table. For a moment, neither of us said anything. We just sat there, the silence between us louder than any words could be. Finally, Rachel spoke. "Jake, please, just give me a chance to explain. I didn't mean for it to go this far. It was a mistake. It was a moment of weakness. But I love you. I want us to work through this." Her words hit me like a slap. I had wanted so badly to believe them. I had wanted to believe that there was still a chance for us. But the truth was undeniable. The trust had been shattered, the bond broken. And no matter how much I wished otherwise, it was never going to be the same. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Rachel," I said, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. "I don't know if I can look past what you've done. I don't know if I can love you the same way anymore." Her face crumpled as the tears began to fall again, but I couldn't comfort her. I couldn't pretend that everything was going to be okay. It wasn't. And it never would be. "I need time," I continued. "I need to figure out who I am without you. I can't make this decision right now. But I can't keep living like this, either." I stood up and turned toward the door. I didn't look back. I couldn't.